where you guys are coming from. Please let us know here right now, just who you are, where you're tuning in from right now. All right. So I know many of you guys have been waiting quite a bit, and especially because you're probably here because you want to know, how do I create more cash flow each and every month? And by the way, how can I create more cash flow that keeps increasing for the rest of my life forever? And every time I remember when I wrote that title, it was like forever. All I could think was the Sandlot. It's like forever, forever, right? So we want cash flow forever, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen here because I got to have something to keep my thoughts all together. But once again, welcome guys. Oh, I see the chats coming in. Much better than some of the other things we've had before too, which is awesome to see that. So, all right, we got Julie from California. We got Roberto. Good to see you as well, Roberto. Michelle, Julie from California. Angelo, yep, love to see you from Sacramento, and Andrew from Denver. So, and so many others of you as well. So welcome to our Not So podcast, right? All right, so let's just go ahead and dive right in. All right, so those of you guys that don't know me, I'm known as the anti-financial advisor. I'll explain what that really means in a bit, but really let's talk about this. Like, what if I could show you how you can actually find another $1,000 per month without a lot of time, without a lot of money, without having to start a brand new business that claims passive income, it's really a part-time job, and it doesn't require you to be a financial genius, just like hundreds of my clients have already done over the last 14 years. Would you like to see how that's done? If the answer is yes, let's keep going, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Because today we're going to find out where to find the money to invest, right? How do you find that cash flow? How do you free up cash? Even if it's not to invest, even just have more money every month when inflation is trying to kick your butt. Two, like, what are my favorite investments that your financial advisor will never tell you about ever, because either one, they don't know about it, or two, they're scared to death because you'll fire them over it. And then three is like, how do we increase our cash flow that lasts forever, ever, right? Just so you know, we're going to talk about the passive income calculator at the end. And I'll let you know this too. Like, there's some special things I'm going to share at the end of how this whole picture works together, how this not only helped a lot of our clients be able to get out of the rat race where they're work optional. They work because they want to, not because they have to, because they have enough passive income to cover their expenses. But even more importantly, like how I was able to do it myself twice, right? So I'm really going to dig into that here. So just be aware, I'm going to give you guys some good action things to really take action upon, right? Things to actually do here. And these things I'm teaching you here, I mean, our typical client finds at least $20,000 in the first year alone. Usually we find a lot more, but I'm trying to go on the low end just to be more compliant, with laws and things like that. But usually they find at least $20,000 in the first year alone. And if we can help you find a fraction of that, I think that'd be awesome. Now, many of you guys might know or might not know, depending if you've seen me before, that I always talk about I was able to become financially independent. The first time I was 28, the second time I was 39. Why? Because I lost a lot of money. So people was like, how did you retire twice? Easy. I screwed up the first time, right? When the Great Recession hit me, the global financial crisis that we had, between the high risks I was taking in some of the real estate deals I was doing, plus add on top of that, a new business I had launched with a partner where we were focused towards real estate flippers who then were starting to go broke. It was like this perfect storm in the George Clooney, you're going to die kind of way. Where just everything was falling apart, right? I went from millionaire to upside down millionaire, where I was in the hole about $16,000 a month, right? And over $1 million in debt. And some of these things I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about some cash flow secrets that I've talked about, which I did a class on this before. This is going to be more of a bigger picture overview of how it all works together to help you create financial freedom faster, right? But that's a big part of it. Like, even without investing, I was still able to pay off over $900,000 in debt in just those next 3 years, as I was trying to dig out of that debt hole. No, I did not file for bankruptcy. I'm not lying about that either. I'm not like someone, that we know that might be on the grand stage saying, I never filed for bankruptcy, but we know that he had, business bankruptcies and whatnot, right? No, if I went bankrupt, you would know it, because I don't care about hiding that kind of thing. Because the honest truth is, this is part of my journey. It's great. And here's the thing is, like, if you're right now struggling yourself, right? Maybe you're feeling like things are getting tighter. Maybe you're feeling like you have to tighten the belt a little bit more, because things are getting more expensive, but maybe you're not getting as much of an increase of income at work. Maybe you are, but still you're feeling like, man, I'm making more, but where's it all going? That's exactly what I want to address, is how do we find and free up that cash? How do you actually get it working for you and create more leverage with it, so that you can not only you don't have to live on rice and beans the rest of your life, but you can also, by the way, have enough passive income to do whatever you want. You can work because you want to, not because you have to. Just so you're aware, guys, like my start of the journey, I started out as a financial advisor. This is the house I lived in. This was it's got the nice fiberglass carport. The stairs were in the way, so you couldn't park your car all the way under. So it was still exposed to elements. Even in this picture, though, it had already fallen off, but we had like the AstroTurf, kind of green stuff that goes on your stairs and all that kind of stuff. And we had the fuzzy wallpaper. It was built in 1971. Everything about it was, including the calico colored carpets, the green shag carpets that was like mowing a lawn when you're trying to vacuum it. I mean, I was in that house. That was my starter home. And of course, you probably know that, like I mentioned, 2007, world kind of was blowing up a little bit. I went and bought, this home, right? I went and bought this home in 2006. It was my dream home. It was a parade home, like where everybody goes through and tours it, and then you get to move in after everybody's, done making a mess of your house, right? And so I was very proud of it. It was up on a ledge overlooking, the valley and all this kind of stuff, and right outside the canyons. It was just beautiful, gorgeous place. It was my dream home. And now while I was there, of course, that's when 2007 started happening, right? And I started going in the hole every month. And pretty soon, even paying this, heck, even if I was debt free, I was still in the hole every month. And so they got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. Like I was literally going broke. And I remember even in 2009, a knock came on my door. This was actually a Wednesday morning in April of 2009. Got a knock on my door about 10 a.m. A guy standing on my doorstep, didn't know who he was. He just introduced himself, said, "Hey, I just bought your house at the county courthouse a half hour ago. It's mine now. When can you get out?" And at that time, my wife was about to have our fourth child a week later. So I was able to negotiate it. He bought it for his sister, which ironically, his other sister lived just down the street from me. So it was going to be like a family street almost, And of course, I was just like begging him. I said, "Listen, can I pay you just $2,000? I drained everything out of my account that I had left. $2,000 to stay in here for 2 weeks so I can figure out where to move." And we did. I eventually moved out and I lived in this place for a while. No, I'm just kidding. I did not live in a van down by the river, for all you Chris Farley fans. Living on government cheese, although we were on welfare. So we did have the government cheese part, but we did actually have a house. It was just a much smaller house, that we were all crammed into with our family of, at that time, family of 6. And I'll tell you guys, this is where I stopped. I had already stopped teaching about passive income at this point. I started teaching people how to free up cash flow, right? How to find money, how to get resourceful. And I'll tell you guys, cash flow is everything. Cash flow is what creates freedom. Because now, I was able to dig out of that hole. End of 2016, had over 10,000 a month of passive income. I was like, cool, I'm now financially independent. I'm work optional, right? I can pay all of my bills. And I really had that life of freedom. I was working literally very, very part-time in my business. I was pretty much a solopreneur, just doing this stuff part-time and doing my podcast, my New Ripples podcast, like many of you guys already listen to now. If you don't, you should. But that's where, I was starting to have that kind of freedom. And so I was able to do it the second time by the time I was 39, guys. And so my real message for you is that there's a big problem right now. Like I said, interest rates have been going up. We've got inflation that's kicking our butts, right? And all that kind of stuff. And then you have people telling you to live on more rice and beans. And we just don't need that kind of scarcity, right? And not to mention, the guy that tells you to live on rice and beans, he also tries to give you investment advice, saying if you save $100 a month for 40 years, you'll have almost 1.2 million. Unfortunately, I did the math for him and found out he did it wrong, and he was $200,000 off. This is the financial guy that millions and millions of people follow, thinking he is like the god of finance, and yet he can't even get the simple numbers right. And on top of that, he even tells you this 12% rate of return on the stock market, which is not the case. It only does 8% barely, and most people don't even make stock market returns. So even if you made 8%, it's insane, right? By the way, I actually missed that one. So, but yeah, if you actually put it at 8%, you've got yeah, you can't see it at all? Well well, too bad. Okay. Well, I don't know why. Let me try it again. Let's try sharing one more time and see if this works. Supposed to be sharing my screen, right? If that doesn't work, I can always just share my entire screen so you guys can see everything. All right. So I know you're going to probably see this, right? So you see this one right now with the comments, right? Okay. If I move it, do you see it now? All right. So I'm going to do this differently. Appreciate you telling me that, since I can't see your guys' things right now. All right. Well, then let's do Entire screen. See if this makes a difference. It's going to be like the mirror in the mirror in the mirror, right? So there you go. That kind of wigs you out. All right. Now, if I move it, does it work now? Okay. There we go. Thanks, everybody. Thank Danielle here in the comments for those of you watching live right now. Even if you're not, you can comment later in the future. So anyways, Dave, I mean, he's been giving this advice, and then you get a person like Michelle up here at the top saying, Dave, I followed your advice since I was 18 years old. I'm 50. I've lost my entire retirement in the stock market. I've done what you said, and I've lost almost all of it. Is there anything else you'd recommend? Guys, this is a big problem because, you know, if every, this is, I love this Seinfeld quote, right? Like if every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right. Guys, if everybody keeps following the same advice, you're going to keep getting the same results. If it hasn't worked yet, why do you keep working? By the way, those numbers he gave you, because if you do 8%, instead of having almost 1.2 million, you have more like $400,000, guys. 400,000, not 1.2 million. You have a third of what he sold you on. That means you have to save 3 times as much money as what he and a lot of other financial advisors have been telling you to do. Guys, it isn't working. If Fidelity's throwing out stats saying, hey, only 1.8% of people have $1 million in a retirement account, and that's people that have been saving for decades, right? And obviously more than $100 a month, then we've got a problem, you know? And so this is why I say you got to do the opposite, because the opposite's more likely going to get you results than doing the same thing over and over, right? And so that's the thing. Less cash flow equals more stress. You know this. Like, you know that it's not about just being a multimillionaire on paper, right? It's not about having a big 401k or IRA. It's not about, you know, even just having a savings account if it doesn't generate income from you month after month, day after day. If it cannot help you pay your bills, you are stuck. You will be just like many of the other people that come to us that are poster children of Dave Ramsey saying, hey, I'm asset rich and cash poor. Yeah, I've got a couple $1 million net worth, but I have zero income coming in outside of my own job. If I lose my job or I quit, I'm as broke as everybody. Doesn't matter if I'm a multimillionaire or not. And that's exactly the case. It's not about having more net worth, more cash, more retirements, more houses. It's about the income, the cash flow comes in each and every day. And when you don't have it, it puts you in a place of scarcity where you're freaking out. And it doesn't just hurt you, it hurts your children, guys. It hurts them because they're the ones that actually are having to hear these conversations coming out of your mouth. Whether you know it or not, they know what you think and feel about money. And if it's not a positive conversation, it passes on to another generation. And what kind of legacy do you want to leave for your kids? If you're like me, and I'm a father of 8 kids, right? Yes, I know 8 kids. That sounds already, you're like, okay, this guy's insane. Enough, you know, that's it. But, you know, I've got 8 kids. You know, I don't want to pass on something that makes their lives worse. And I know you don't either, right? Because we want their lives to be better. We don't want them to become entitled, spoiled brats. We know this, but we want them to have better opportunities, a better life. And that requires them to have better conversations around money. And that starts with you first. And I'm telling you that's where the abundance mindset has to come in, guys, because abundance is everything, not just living a life of scarcity where you have not enough, right? That's what I was raised in with my dad. He was telling me it's not enough. We gotta live cheap. We can't afford this. I can't, what do you think? Money grows on trees? I'd hear all these phrases growing up as a kid. I did not want the same for my kids either. And maybe you were raised the same way. And again, my dad's a great guy. He taught me that, you should also have integrity. Your word is your bond. Work hard. Do what you say you're going to do. Like, live up to your word, that kind of thing. That's huge. That's a great legacy that he's passed on to me. Now it's my turn. Just like it's your turn, it's my turn to pass on something different. And guys, this is why, again, cash flow is what really creates that freedom. Here's how you're going to do it. It's going to be in 3 basic steps here. One is that education, right? You got to have that right perspective shift around money. You got to have that abundance mentality. You cannot just keep thinking the same way and expect different results. It requires a different level of education that you're not offered from your financial advisor and you're not offered from the Dave Ramsey of the world. It's something better and different. And I'm telling you, once I got away from the financial advisor stuff and the Dave Ramsey stuff, which I used to follow him as well. Once I got away from that, my life changed forever. And if you want your cash flow to change forever, you have to change that education level forever. We'll also talk about max ROI infinite banking, which is a strategy to get your money to pay you twice, pay you in 2 places at the same time, including in your third one, the passive income investments. to then keep feeding it and growing it and allowing you to create that wealth that perpetuates and grows forever. And it's not about accumulating your money, but it's about accelerating it. But that perspective is what determines your actions, right? It's always about how you see the world, how you see money, how you see investing, how you see everything is what determines the actions you take. This is why when I talk to my clients here, like we have so many clients that we work with, and the thing that always has to happen for them is they have to have a perspective shift. If you do not have this perspective shift, you will not make the right decisions with your money, period. You will keep falling into the same path of everybody else that's been living out their lives, much like what my dad had to do. Even though he's saved in his 401ks, paid off all of his debt, he found out that he was stuck in a rut. He was stuck in a situation where he's like, I got to keep working into my 70s. And then even then, I work all these years, 40, 50 years, to then what? Hopefully live out the last 10 years of my life on a meager budget. That's what people are doing right now. They literally need Social Security to help pay to make up the gap. Do you really want to be in that place like everybody else, or do you want something different? I mentioned perspective determines action. I have this photo right here of one of my races. Obviously, this is not a flattering photo for a few reasons. I know some of you guys just went blind, but I'm chasing after. It looks like I'm chasing after this little girl, right? It looks like I'm getting my butt kicked by this little girl, and from that perspective, you're right? Like this girl is in front of me. She is winning the race. Now, what you don't know is that we're actually running two different races. She's running a 5K, 3.1 miles. I'm running a 10K, 10.2 or 6.2 miles. I'm running double the distance. We started at the same time. I'm just now catching up to her. So I basically ran twice as fast as this girl, but it looks like I'm just some creepy stalker guy trying to chase like a, child, philanderer or whatever, trying to chase after this little girl. That's not the case, right? It's always about perspective. Perspective determines the viewpoint. If you have that right perspective, everything works. Just like Neo in the Matrix, right? Once he took that red pill, everything changed in his life from that point forward. Here's what you got to know. Principles first, strategies second. You got to understand the three different perspectives of money. There's spenders, savers, and there's stewards. Spenders and savers, they're both in scarcity. Spenders, we get it. It's easy come, easy go. You blow the money comes in and it's gone, right? And you're always trying to hustle. You're always trying to create more income so they can make more money. Many business owners become business owners because being an employee is not a good thing for a spender. So a lot of business owners are often spenders as well, and they go into that place. Same thing with savers. Now, many times people that take the savers path are people that have the 9 to 5 type of jobs. They want the safe route. They want to save, right? They want to do those things. But here's the thing, is that even savers would never have abundance because they can never save enough. They can never pay off their debt fast enough. It's just never enough. These are the people that come to us later saying, hey, I did everything Dave Ramsey said, and I still can't retire. I still can't stop working. I don't have any freedom because there's no income coming in from the decisions I made. I just put all my money in prison. And that's where the steward comes in. The steward says, let's get that money out of prison. Let's see what I can do with this money to get it to work harder for me so I don't have to work so hard for it. Right? That's the big thing. How many of you guys would rather have that in your life where you can actually have your money working harder for you instead of the other way around? That's the key. That's what a steward does. Stewards look for ways to multiply and increase their stewardship and manage that stewardship and be wise stewards of the resources they have, not just set it and forget it like savers have been taught to do, right? Which is what financial advisors want you to do, so you stop talking to them. You got to do that. By the way, let's talk about financial advising and everything else, because I was one for 4 years. That's why I quit, because when I realized I couldn't even help my dad retire, nor anybody else, nor could any financial advisor retire, I knew there was a problem. Because the truth is that just you don't see it, right? These guys, they are good salespeople. They make good income from selling you, but they do not make good investment decisions because they're not investors. They are salespeople that pack their money away. They're saving their savers' perspective as a salesperson, and they throw it all into their mutual funds and still can't retire. That's what I learned after 4 years of being a financial advisor, looking intimately into their lives and also looking at the trajectory of my own life and seeing what happened in my dad's life. When I was like, Dad, you're 61 years old. If you want to retire today, you got to hope you die in 5 years. Because even though you're debt free and you've stuffed money in that 401k with a match, you still can't do it. That's where being a steward is different. And either if you're a spender or a saver, it doesn't matter. You can actually meet in the middle as a steward because it's really the perfect blend of both. Because the problem with savers, they're not willing to use money. But if you're willing to use money like spenders do, spenders just use money and then it never comes back, right? But if you can use money wisely, Use money in a way that generates more income, improves your cash flow month after month, year after year. Now you have freedom. That's the only way you can have freedom. It's about acceleration, not accumulation. You don't worry about compounding interest. You're more concerned about compounding income, right? That's what you really want. The truth is, even anybody who even wants retirement, if they're looking in their 60s, doesn't matter if you want to retire in your 20s or 30s like I did, or your 60s, what you really want is you want income coming in that you don't have to worry about, that you know is always going to be there, right? Again, if this is resonating with you guys, just type Y really quick. Just say, yeah, I'm with you, right? Just type a quick Y. If it's not, just type N. But obviously, like, you get that, right? You want more income. The cash flow is everything for your freedom, not how much you've saved away and packed away into that thing. I remember talking to a father-in-law. This is exactly what he was taught. He went to me. He says, "Well, Chris, I'm going to have to talk to this Ameriprise guy about my portfolio. What should I expect?" I said, he's going to look at your portfolio. He might suggest moving your money around here, there, everywhere. He's going to suggest you just keep saving more money because it's not going to be enough, because it's never enough. So they're going to keep telling you to save more and to set it there forever. And maybe you have to even work longer, which is what now they're starting to recommend. They're starting to tell people to work past their mid 60s into their 70s now, because they realize it's just not enough saving in those traditional kind of plans. And so I said, he's going to tell you that same thing. You know, obviously, if you paid off your debt, you're good, but just keep funneling money away. And he's really not going to give you any real advice. He's just going to say, keep going. He came back to me. He said, Chris, he said exactly what you said to a T. I was like, of course he did. He was trained the same way I was, right? Because the truth is, we can't do anything. We have no control over the stock markets. We don't know what to do. We're just gambling and guessing like everybody else. It's not about accumulating that money and hoping you can live on 3% a year, which is the number that now financial advisors recommend. No. Why become a millionaire to live on $30,000 a year? Retarded. So here's what you need to do. These are the 3 things you got to start working on right now. Get lean, get liquid, get out. Now, get lean, I do not mean living on rice and beans, right? That's not what I'm saying. Get lean does not mean that, right? What it means is, if you want to have success, we got to be a wise steward of our money. 1, track money, right? Great options could be like Monarch Money or Rocket Money. You know, these are great potential options you could be using for yourself. So track your money. This needs to happen at least, if it's not on a weekly basis, at least every other week. You know, start really looking at your money. Don't wait till the end of the month. Don't wait till the end of the year at tax time or whatever it might be. Start tracking your money out. If you're a business owner, start using things like QuickBooks. Track your money. If you're a business owner, I recommend doing it weekly, especially in that case. It's not hard to do once you have the systems in place. The hardest part of this is setting it up. Once it's set up, it works. I'll give you an example. I had a woman that came to me, her and her husband were making $250,000 a year between the two of them. And yet they're like, we don't know why, we don't know where the money's going. So we analyzed their money, got them to track it. And it took a while. It took them about 2 months before they finally got the numbers out. And the numbers came back and it was shocking. For example, they were spending $5,600 a month just eating out. That doesn't include the $1,200 a month grocery bill. So between eating out and groceries, they're spending $6,800 a month living on $250,000. No wonder they were wondering why credit cards were running up. And so we started having track money as I start doing this. And by the way, why don't we cut back on the eating out? Let's make that budget only $1,000. I know, only $1,000. My wife got after me because we did spend $1,000 1 month eating out. She's like, how dare you? You know, we make more money than they do. You know, so be careful, right? Like, you got to be careful. So watch that money. It's not about living cheap, right? It's just about watching the money and see where it's going. I had somebody else, they were a super busy entrepreneur. They're like, I don't even have time to track it. But when we got them to do it, we realized they were leaking about $1,800 a month that they could actually have back in their life. Guys, $1,800 a month, you understand that's over $20,000 a year back in their life. And they didn't have to cut back their lifestyle at all. Hey, heck, we got rid of cable for one. That was $300 a month. We're like, just get separate internet service and stream and you're good, right? Little things like that, right? Even sometimes overdraft fees. I mean, there's so many ways you can do it. I'm not going to go in depth with this. I'm going to start here because this is a great way to start getting lean. Is the first step for you is to start tracking your money. If you haven't done so already, if you are, great job, good job. We can move on for you. But for the rest of you, if you're not doing this, this is something that has to become a habit, just like exercise. If you want to get stronger, you got to do that, right? If you want to be stronger financially, this habit has to be in place too. Selling assets. Right here, guys, you're seeing my dad's basement before he had a recent flood. He has literally thousands upon thousands of stuffed animals. Why? You might ask, because that's a good question to ask. It's because my dad is freaking crazy. That's why. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's because he got this little hobby called a crane machine. You know, the ones at the stores or the restaurant, the Denny's you go to, and you see a little crane machine with stuffed animals. Yeah, that's my dad. He's the guy that would always be hovering around that crane machine and would amazingly become very talented at it and start grabbing all these animals. We told him this could become his retirement plan, right? But he's like, no, I can't do it, and so he didn't. It just literally, like, he donated some, of course, which was great. Sold off some, like some of those Harley Davidson pigs on the right you see there. He sold off for like $20 a piece at a yard sale. But the rest of them, either they rotted, got flooded, and then became moldy or whatever, and dangerous to the health, and all that kind of stuff, right? He's still got literally thousands left to give away. If you guys are interested, there's some really stinky old stuffed animals that you can have today, right now. We have a QR code at the end. No, we won't. Just kidding. So anyways, selling assets. What does that have to do with it? Guys, just like all of his friends, and even I said, like, why don't you just buy your own crane machine and fill it with this, right? Just stuff your own crane machines and make more money off that. Get rid of your stuff. If you're not going to use it, lose it. That's what stewards do. Stewards like to get rid of things that they're not going to use, either by selling it, donating it. At least you can get a tax write-off if you do that way, or just throw it away. Get rid of it. Get rid of that clutter, because it invites something more in your life. Find ways to do that. I did that myself. Like when I was really in a really hard spot, we got foreclosed on the house and moved to a smaller one. It gave us really good incentive to say, let's clean this sucker out. And so we started selling off assets. We literally were able to survive and make it through that summer by selling off our assets until things started to turn around in my business. And then we didn't need to do that anymore. Insurance. Again, I'm not going to go deep into all of these because there's so much to cover in this one. But insurance, there are ways to free up money on insurance. I'm not saying get rid of it. That's a bad idea, because insurance is one of the things that can actually ensure that you keep your wealth there. And I say insure, I didn't mean to do that as a pun, because that's a different spelling of the word. But insurance is a great way to make sure you keep all that hard-earned assets that you've created. I'll give you the example. I just came back from my health insurance agent's place, and that health insurance agent, he is awesome. He saved us hundreds of dollars a month. He actually saved one of our clients $1,100 a month recently. Huge advantage. $1,100 a month. Imagine what that would do for you guys. That's 13 grand a year. Could you do something with 13 grand a year? Could you maybe invest that money and make more cash flow from that money to then increase your cash flow some more? Yes. And that's exactly what I was talking to his agents about just a few hours ago, because that is huge. You free up that kind of cash flow, that's more that you can then put away to work in your favor to create income now, not 40 years from now, but today. Taxes, that's another one, right? Taxes. I'll just say this, guys, like taxes, I'm not going to tell you all the kind of stuff, but if you don't have a business, you should at least have a side business, a side hustle or something where you can take advantage of all the tax codes as a business owner. I'll tell you, I started paying so much less in taxes, even when I became an independent contractor. Even not even just consider myself a business owner, even when I became an independent contractor, all the things I could write off that I couldn't before, like my phone. I couldn't write that off as a W-2 employee, but I could as a business owner. I could write off sometimes my trips and vacations if I'm going to do it, and I could do some kind of business en route or even while I'm at that location, right? And I don't have to do it all the whole vacations or my family hates them. No, I just have to do a little bit, even just on more than half of those days, and I could write off that whole trip, guys. So things like that, I call them bizcations, right? You can pay children. You can pay even office leases in different ways that you can take tax-free income. I mean, there's so many cool things. By the way, look up the Augusta rule. Pretty cool one you can do if you have a corporation in place. So lots of ways to save on taxes. I totally believe in paying taxes. I pay a lot in taxes, but I don't want to pay any more than I have to. And you probably shouldn't either. Here's a bonus. If you're a W-2 employee, because you're like, I don't have a business, what do? Do you get a tax refund every year? If the answer is yes, how much? Take that number, divide it by 12, and that's how much you're overpaying in taxes each month. If you're like, hey, I get a $6,000 tax return each year, that means you're overpaying $500 a month on taxes. Well, what does that mean? That means, guys, you can change your exemptions on your tax returns to then increase them and work with a CPA or an accountant on this. But you can increase it to where you try to get zero at the end of the year, so you can take that money now. Because what if that extra $500 a month that you were already overpaying taxes anyways, you could take that now? Could that help you pay off a credit card? Could that help you actually save some more money and create some more flexibility and freedom so you don't charge up a credit card? Or you can even just have some more stability and you can even invest more. That's one of the big things you can do with taxes there. Speaking of debt, I just mentioned debt. I'm not going to go hugely in depth with this, but here's the thing I'll tell you is that stewards do not fear debt. I just did a great podcast episode on the Money Ripples podcast channel. You got to check out, talking about that very topic of debt. I think that came out actually just yesterday. Debt, do not fear it, right? By the way, debt's not even debt in the first place. Debt is negative equity, right? The loans that you have is a liability. And yes, those often will have a monthly payment. But think about it. It's not the debt you fear, it's the payment, isn't it? Because if you had a mortgage payment that was $5 a month, would you be freaking out saying, I got to pay off this mortgage? It's killing me. But if it was $5 a month, you'd say, this is the cheapest rent I will ever get for the rest of my life, heck, or ever, right? That's what you're thinking. Now you might say, well, I still owe money. And it's still, your mind will battle with itself because of the lies you were taught by bankers and financial advisors, right? Which of course they want you to pay off the debt. That's why they teach this, because they want the money faster so they can go and lend out more money. By the way, if debt were so evil, why do banks have so much of it? Why do banks have more debt than they have assets? Because they're literally in the business of debt. And they use that debt wisely for the most part. Some don't. But for the most part, they use that debt wisely to make more money. That's how they create the biggest buildings in the entire city. They're the richest companies in the world because they know how to, as a steward, they don't fear debt. They just learn how to use it wisely. That's why I always tell people, I'm like, well, where do banks invest money? Because people say, well, I should invest in the stock market. Well, okay, well, go ask your banker right now if they'll lend you money to put in the stock market and see what they say. It's a big fat rejection. No, guys, banks aren't stupid. They know that the stock market is a crappy place to put your money. But where will they lend you money? Business and real estate. Those two places they'll gamble on. They'll bank on, literally, right? But for you, like they will not give you money for other stuff like that. They might give you a credit card and they're like, yeah, good luck, but you better pay us back. If you don't, we're coming after you. But when it comes to assets and real investments, they don't put the money in the crappy stock market. They think the IRAs and 401ks are stupid unless you do it with them where they can make their guaranteed fees off of you, right? You know that's right, don't you? And so that's where we're in trouble. So don't fear debt, but do respect debt. You got to respect it, and that it can hurt you, but it can also help you. So you got to be careful with it. Now I'm going to show you this really quickly. I actually did a much longer version of this about this cash flow index. It's actually a strategy I created back in 2008 when I was broke and I was trying to figure out, do I invest money or do I pay off debt? Well, this is the one thing I've used. If all I had was $5,000, naturally, if you just saw $5,000 on each of these, one's a 4%, say, car loan, while the other one's an 18% credit card, every financial person, guess what they're going to say to pay off if all you have is $5,000? 18% credit card, right? They're going to say, pay that sucker off. But, oops, let me go back there. But I would say, don't do that. Now, you will pay it off, but look at the payment, $500 a month. Which one, if you pay it off, which one will give you the most freedom? Which one will give you more breathing room? Which one creates the most stress? It's the $500 a month, isn't it? That's the one you pay off. Here's the great thing, guys, is that life is never perfect. Life is never meant to be putting you in a calculator. But if that $500 a month is freed up, now you have options with that money. Cash flow creates options. And when you have more options, that creates freedom. So that $500 a month, you can always put towards that $5,000 credit card. You'll pay it off in less than a year. You'll hardly even get charged that much in interest at all. The 18% doesn't mean much short term. But if you do the opposite, you only free up $100 a month, and then something happens where your income drops or an expense goes up, you're going to be hating that $500 a month bill. You would much rather be paying $100 a month than $500 a month when stress hits. And it inevitably does hit at some point. You need to play it safer. That's why I use the cash flow index. These are basic rules of thumb. I've actually since updated it. But just so you know, like the lowest number is the one you want to pay off. So going back to this example, 5,000 divided by 500, this is what you do. You take the liability, the loan amount, divide by the minimum monthly payment, it gives you an index. 5,000 divided by 500 is 10. 5,000 divided by 100 is 50. The 10 is the one that gets paid off first. It's 5 times more effective to pay it off. As you can see here, $500 a month versus 100, 5 times better to pay it off. Use that index, especially when there's all kinds of numbers thrown at you. It's not this perfect looking. You know, usually for most people, it looks like this, right? We got various numbers. Well, same thing. And then you can organize it. Notice like this one, the auto loan, that $10,000, $500 a month payment, pay it off as an index of 20. The Visa credit card is the next one. Even though it's a higher interest rate, it has a lower index or a higher index, we pay it off after the fact, right? We pay it off. We still make minimum payments on all these loans, but we're not speeding it up. We pay off these other ones, right? So paying these things off little by little. Notice all the extra payments. There's like $500 of extra payments, and they're paying them on the ones they shouldn't be paying on, the ones with the highest index. If you're gonna take that extra 500, put it on that freaking, well, at least with the savings, build up savings to have enough to then pay off the auto loan in one big check, right? Take that money, use it that direction versus just trying to, figure it out, like just trying to like make it work. And you'll pay off your loans much faster. That's the key. Again, I'm not gonna put a lot of information, a lot of intensity and focus on this because I did that in my last masterclass about cash flow, but just know that's a big deal and you should definitely watch it. Stop 401ks. My last masterclass freaked people out. This was like the number one question that came up. They're like, yeah, but the match. Yeah, guys, I've got a whole 401k about the lies of 401ks on my podcast channel talking about that, how the match isn't 100% return, even when you get 100% match. Shocker. Even the 50% match is not a 50% rate of return. It's not. It might add a couple percent return to your money long term. Don't fall for it, especially because it locks your money in prison. When you need money the most, 401k does nothing. Now, if you're looking to retire, maybe you're 55 years old right now, you're looking to retire at 60, great. It's only locked away from you for maybe even another 5 years. Not the best situation, but it's still at least you have this end in sight. But what about those of you in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s? And you're like, wait a minute, I would like to actually have income faster, passive income faster than waiting until my 60s to finally use this money and then be told I can only live on 3% of it. Exactly. This is why you can do something better. Income, that's the next thing. We talked about expenses, right? Reduce expenses, right? Even stop funding your 401k and take that money and put it into savings. But the big thing here is income, is that you can create income in two different ways. One is active. You always get a better job or get a raise. You can do side hustle. You do like real estate strategies like wholesaling, fix and flip. You can do businesses and franchises. You can become an affiliate where you refer people and get paid a referral fee. You can do Airbnb rentals, whether it's short-term or mid-term rentals. I mean, there's so many ways to create even semi-active income that has a little bit of leverage to your time that can be done on the side. And like I said, if you have at least a side business, if not a main business, you have the best tax advantages available to you doing that, which allows you to save more money, even if it's off your active job income too. But passive income, that's the one we love, right? I love what Warren Buffett says. If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. That's where we come around. Now, I'm going to come back to this again because I'm going to get to passive income investment. So I want to address max ROI infinite banking because for many of you, this is the next step. After you get the education, the perspective, where do we put our money? Because if I stop funding my 401k, where can I park it? Where can I at least make some money with this? Well, for many of you, the first bet, even holding some of your emergency fund money in, as well as having money to invest, is this max ROI infinite banking strategy. Here's how it works, guys. Most people take their money, they put into an investment. Ideally, and most people don't do this, but the people that do cash flowing investments, they'll put it into an investment that cash flows money, and then that cash flow comes back and goes back in their checking or savings account, right? Same thing. I'm sure that's the same with you. Well, here we're doing something a little bit different. Here instead, and this is something that, by the way, I was actually opposed to. I thought was a bunch of crap when I first heard about it, until I actually understood the process. I actually used one of the most boring financial products out there today that unfortunately most people, even the traditional insurance advisors and investment advisors and people like that, don't even know how to set up right in the first place. And that's whole life insurance. So this one strategy you use with whole life insurance, see, it's not just death insurance. It has a life insurance component too. It has this tax-free savings account in there. That's like a tax-free high yield savings account. The problem is the way that most people set up these policies is that they're very expensive up front and they'll charge all of those expenses to you. And that's all based on insurance costs and things like that. But it takes so long to finally build up that little tax-free savings account because all the insurance costs are eating at it, that it takes you like sometimes 10, 15, 20 years before you finally say, yay, I made my money back. Instead, you could do it much faster. Yeah, there's those upfront costs, but the cool thing is if you can lower those costs as low as you can go, allowing the other cash, the tax-free savings account inside of it, not just the death benefit, but now you got the tax-free savings account inside of it to grow. Now that money can be used to also invest. And here's the cool thing, guys. I mean, what if you had this magic savings account, right? One thing that makes it magic is that it's, like most savings accounts are taxable. If you have it through a bank or anything else, even a high yield savings account, you pay taxes on the money, on the point nothing percent you earn. But what if you can get that high yield savings account to be tax free? And what if that high yield savings account, you can actually use that money to invest, but not actually take it out of the savings account, so that the savings account still pays you tax free compounding interest while you can also invest that money somewhere else at the same time, making your money in two places at once. What if you could do that? That's exactly, once I've understood it and how it actually really worked, that's exactly what you can do with this max ROI infinite banking policy using this whole life insurance policy. It has to be designed just the right way to make it work. But man, when it is, that thing works awesome. Because the great thing is that instead of me just pulling my money out, which I could do and invest it, no, I want my money working two places at once. I'm a steward. I want my money to multiply. I don't have to work harder for it than I don't have to. So instead, I borrow the money from the insurance company. I get this loan that's off the books, right? It's not on your credit score or anything like that or credit reports. And they do charge you interest. Don't get people wrong. All the TikTokers and Instagrammers, people like that saying you pay yourself back, that's bull. You do pay them interest. But here's the cool thing is remember, your money's still in that account untouched, earning tax-free compounding interest while you pay them back at declining simple interest. As you pay the loan balance back with the cash flow from the investments, it actually gets less and less interest charged to you. You pay less and less to interest. More and more frees up that you can then reinvest again. And so what happens is you make money and you actually make a net return inside the policy from just the dividends that they pay you because it earns dividends, tax-free dividends. And you can still earn money doing a cash flow investment, whether it's in your business, whether it's in real estate or wherever it might be. You make money in two places at the same time. Best way to fund this is using your emergency fund up front, for those first few years when there's a net cost. Once you get past about year 3 or 4, there's a net gain. And so any money you put in is accessible to pull right back out anyways. You don't have to wait, by the way, till you're retired to use this money. You can use it if you're, even if you're young. There is no age minimum. By the way, you can set up policies on your kids as young as 2 weeks old, by the way. So, you can set up policies on other people, not just yourself. You can do all kinds of cool things. But you can use this to actually start to not only diversify emergency fund, so now you have this tax-free emergency fund that pays you more than 0.nothing%. And of course, it's tax-free, but it's also in most states 100% protected from lawsuits and creditors. That means if somebody sues you and wins, they can get to your savings accounts, checking accounts, they can get to a lot of your retirement accounts, but they cannot get to this money. It is protected by law. That is huge. So again, this is a good way to supercharge your savings. And let me show you an example of what that means. Say that you want to buy a small apartment building, right? $250,000 down payment on $1 million building. So you could use your savings, just drain all your savings, put the down payment, and now you got cash flow of $2,500 a month. Or we use the strategy that we talked about here using the life insurance policy, where we borrow from the insurance company using your cash as collateral. That's why they give you the loan, and they don't make you pay it back in any time period. You pay it back by your death. That's the deadline to pay back the loans, and they just take it out of the life insurance death benefit and then pay your rest of your family tax-free too, right? But let's just see the comparison between using a savings account versus using this. In a savings account, if you got paid $2,500 a month, you drain your account, and then that $2,500 a month or $30,000 a year goes back in your savings account, earning 0.2% and then paying taxes. Guess what you're left with after 9 years? $1,200 of net interest that you made after paying taxes. $1,200, guys. That's it. Now, using the same strategy, using my life insurance, and I use myself. I'm actually in my mid-40s. I use my own numbers, right? If you're younger, you can get better numbers than me. If you're older, it might be a little bit less, but you realize even a little bit less is still pretty dang awesome. But I ran it on my own self, and I took out the cost of insurance, and I took out the interest I was paying to the bank, to the insurance company, right? Which acts as the bank. And so I took out all of those numbers, and guess what I was left with, guys? After those same 9 years, $126,000. Now remember, the whole point of what I'm teaching you here is how do you have cash flow increasing year after year after year? Do you really think having $1,200 of interest earned in your savings account over 9 years is going to help you increase your cash flow very quickly? Not at all. What if you had $126,000? Do you think you could do something with that? Could that make a massive difference in your life? And the answer is, of course, yes, right? Naturally. That's why that's part of it. And that's why I love this meme. I got a fever and the only prescription is more arbitrage, right? What we want our money to make more interest than what we have to pay for it. This is why banks don't fear debt. We're just doing the same infinite bank, which creates infinite cash flow if done right. You can use that same thing to be able to do what the banks do, where they charge you more interest than what they pay you. By the way, banks go into debt every time they pay you interest on your savings account. You realize your savings account is debt to them, yet they have no problem paying you interest on that forever, do they? No, in fact, they say, keep it in there. In fact, give us more. Give us more debt, please. Because they know they're going to do that. They're never going to call you up and say, hey, you know what? I love that you banked here for 20 years, but I just got done watching the Dave Ramsey show and I realized, oh my gosh, debt's evil. I got to pay off all my debt. So I'm going to pay back all these savings accounts, give them back to everybody. I hate debt. It's evil. It's bad. It's stupid. It's dumb. That's what Dave taught me. I'm going to do that, right? No, they know Dave's an idiot compared to them, right? And I know Dave's a great guy and he's helped people with budgeting and everything else, and he's awesome there. But when he's trying to teach you to create wealth, you got to move past that point to actually do what the banks have done. And by the way, even what Dave Ramsey himself has done with buying real estate and business, which is where all of his net worth is, not in stock markets, by the way, doing those things that have actually worked. And so that's where you can make money twice, right? You can make money just like the bank does, but now you flip the tables around where you are in control versus them. That's the key. And by the way, I always get people say, yeah, but those costs up front. Well, we minimize those costs pretty nicely to the point where even compared to a normal savings account, now first 5 years, you'll see, yeah, you'll make more cash flow. The left-hand side is if you just took your savings and reinvested it to create this compounding income like we're talking about. But on the right-hand side, the green side, that side's showing you if you use your policy. Now, you'll see that it takes some time, but all of a sudden, by you get to the 10th year, it all of a sudden gets this extra bump up. It goes from 106 to 121,000 because there's this extra cash we still had available in the policy to then use, just like the example, having the 126,000. There's more money to use to invest to then dump on and create that just over $10,000 a month of passive income in that 10th year, where it would have taken 11 years using your savings account with no cost coming out of pocket. Versus here, you can use this infinite banking strategy. And guess what? As a bonus, not only do you do it a year faster, but you also protect your family along the way by having a death benefit too. And that's where we come to passive investments. We're already talking about it. So how do we do it? It's funny. We got, there's all the time we see situations where we're like, holy cow, this person actually starts working with us. We can increase their cash flow by sometimes, it could be 2,000 a month. It could be 5,000, in this case, 19,000 a month, right? By the year 2022, this was in 2021 when I did this, but like literally by the next year, 19,000 a month for this person, right? Which is almost 240,000 a year. We've actually had people do our passive income calculator at moneyripples.com. That'll be one of the action I will give you. But especially if you have cash, you're wondering what to invest in right now. We've had people put numbers in a calculator and showing hundreds of thousands of dollars in the next year that could be created in just passive income alone. This is huge, guys. Like, I'm not talking about passive income like where you have to like get disturbed in your sleep or anything else or try to create a new business. This is something that literally works for you because you get your money working for you, not getting you to work for you. Make sense? Now, I'm going to talk about this Get Liquid really quickly, right? Where do people find the money to invest? Because I said get lean, now it's get liquid, then eventually it's get it out. Well, before you can get the money out to invest, you got to get it liquid. Where places we find that money? This is actually from the passive income calculator. When you're filling it out, we actually ask these very questions. How much do you have in general savings? Whether it's bank savings, it could be gold, silver, crypto, it could be mutual funds, it could be life insurance, cash value, savings in those places. Do you have money in savings sitting around that we can maybe use it to invest to generate cash flow and income, right? How about old 401ks and IRAs? I say old because if you work for a company, unless you own that company, but if you work for a company and you're not over the age of 60, you probably cannot touch that money in your 401k. It's locked up. And now they'll tell you, yeah, you can borrow out 50% or 50,000, whichever's less, but even then you're forced to pay it back with every paycheck. And that really makes cash flow tight. I do not recommend 401k loans. They're kind of a bad deal. But when it comes to this, if you have old 401ks, maybe money you didn't move into the next employer, maybe you got, even if you changed jobs or got laid off recently, this is a beautiful opportunity to be able to say, can I take this money and maybe put it into like a self-directed IRA that I can control, I can invest wherever I want, and then I can build up and create more income faster than what I'm doing otherwise. So you do things like that. Rental properties. Now, I don't mean, you buy rental properties. I mean, do you have rental properties? Do you have rental properties, especially maybe they have equity in it, but maybe the cash flow isn't great? I had a client, by the way, that had $700,000 of equity in his rentals and only cash flowing $200 a month. Guys, if you do the math, that $200 a month on $700,000 of equity is a 0.3%, a 0.3% return on your equity. Versus, I could have had a whole heck of a lot more. In fact, that's what he did. And I'll tell you about his story in a bit. Home equity. Do you have equity in your home? Now, I'm not big about just trying to cash out all the equity from your house, but sometimes there's ways to do it. We even have a new client coming in right now where she was able to have an investor give her access to equity. He was able to pay her for the equity, but charge no interest, at least not up front. He became an equity investor versus a mortgage investor, right? He wasn't doing debt. He did it no debt, just became an investor by investing in her equity, things like that. Now, there's all kinds of investments. You can do things like turnkey rentals where you're not property managing the property. I've got turnkeys I'll talk about in a minute. Lending, you can actually become like the bank where you lend to other real estate investors and you get paid sometimes at least 10, 12% a year on that money, sometimes more. There's different funds, and I don't mean mutual funds. I mean like different real estate backed funds that might be invested in different things. It could be diversified. It could be in one type of project, a lot of different things there. You could be in apartments. You could be in self-storage, which lately those two things have been hurt lately, but could be coming back here in 2025. Oil and mineral rights. You could do things like that. And even partnerships, business partnerships, guys. You actually make money there. And by the way, sometimes those oil mineral rights can also be partnerships, like a business partnership where you can actually get paid on the royalties of the drilling. And partnerships as well. Like I'll show you some of mine. Here's a partnership I have right now with raw land, where literally I have a company that's buying and selling raw land. They're buying it at wholesale. Using my cash. They then sell it at retail, and then they do it on terms. They make them pay it back like it's a 10-year or 15-year mortgage payment, and they charge them interest. And all that cash flow comes in. This right here, by the way, guys, like you'll see this is over 800,000 total of assets that I bought with about just over 400,000, and it's cash flowing over $11,000 a month. A month, guys, that's huge. Here's the thing, like all people will say, well, what about the stock market? The last 6 years done like a 12% average rate of return, which it actually has. Normally it doesn't do 12%, but this year's been awesome. But, right down here at the bottom here is a property I own in Memphis, Tennessee, right? Here's the cool thing, guys. In the last 6 years, if I would have my money in the stocks, right, the $32,000 down payment I put in on that property, but instead put into stocks, I would have just over doubled my money. It would have been $65,000 now. But notice I've now earned $165,000 between equity, debt pay down, because the renters pay down my debt for me, and cash flow. Guys, I made a 415% return versus a 100% rate of return in just 6 years. Results may vary. They're not guaranteed. Yes, you can lose money in real estate, yada, yada, right? We know all these disclaimers. Same thing with stocks, technically, too, even though it's very hard to go to zero in stocks, but it's also really hard to go to zero if you have a property. In fact, probably harder to go to zero. And so, guys, I love real estate for that very reason. I can make more money with less risk than what I get in the stock market. Now, I mentioned this guy, right? That $700,000 of equity. You know what we did with it? He actually was able to go and he bought a bunch of properties, like some of those turnkey properties. He bought them in like Louisiana. He's now bought his 8th property, currently cash flowing, not $200 a month like he was talking about 5 years ago, but now he's earning just over $8,000 a month. Guys, he's making over $100,000 a year with that same equity he had from his one property paying him $200 a month. Sometimes it's just not about, again, it's not about having that high net worth, right? It's not about being a good saver. It's about if you can be a saver that can also be a wise steward to make more money with less. That's the key. This Michigan doctor, guys, like he had $500,000 sitting in his IRA, didn't know what to do. His business was floundering year after year. It was starting to lose more and more profit. He was still profitable, but he was working harder for less pay. And so when we looked at it, I said, well, listen, if we do this, like we see we have some different loans and a mortgage, if we could pay down your mortgage balance a little bit more, we can then refinance it and actually free up $4,200 a month. It'll take $100,000 out of your pocket. So you can use your IRA money. Yes, you'll pay taxes on it, but guess what? That $100,000 will free up $4,200 a month in loan payments. At first he was resisting. He's like, yeah, but how am I going to retire? I can't retire if I cash out my IRA. He'd been so brainwashed. He was even in his 60s, by the way, guys. He's like, I can't touch it. And I was like, no, that $100,000 can free up $50,000 a year, 50% rate of return. He still didn't get it. It was his wife that said, hello, come on, wake up, buddy. This makes sense. Let's do it. And he did. By the way, because he did that, and then we also helped him save $10,000 a year in taxes, his business income increased by $30,000 a year because he relaxed. He didn't need the money anymore. He started to actually enjoy his work, and people started saying yes more to him. And so he started converting more patients, doing nothing more than just freeing up cash flow. And by the way, he still had that $400,000 to invest. So huge. This woman right here, she actually just recently got financially independent. She diversified her money between things like oil investments, some debt funds that were paying her a fixed rate of return, a real estate fund as well. Right now she's cash flowing over $6,000 a month with her $650,000 that she had. This couple right here, they had millions sitting in stocks. Some of that money's still there, by the way. So not everybody always cashes out all their stocks, but they cashed out some. But even before they did that, we said, hey, we can refinance some things, free up some loan payments, $3,800 a month, increase their tax savings by $30,000 a year, good in with a good CPA, and also sold a rental, then bought another rental with that improved their cash flow by $2,000 a month because the equity in the rental could have done better. And then of course, even if they did move all their stocks, even if they got a 10% return, that's $500,000 a year. Guys, that was, I mean, even before we started doing anything with much of the investing, just the things we could do to improve their cash flow situation almost made them about $100,000 a year. And then of course, whatever stocks they did, which they did cash out some of their stocks to invest, guys, they're making a couple $100,000 a year passively already, guys. I even had this guy on my podcast too. I've had several clients on our Money Ripples podcast. I mean, this guy, he was told by his financial advisor with his $1 million retirement to live on $30,000 a year, 3%. He came and did stuff with us, did various types of investments, and now he's making over $100,000 a year with the same money. Not $30,000 a year that you have to pay taxes on, but now $100,000 a year. Some of it has some tax advantages. That's how this wealth wheel works, guys. Is that first you got to change that perspective. 1, 2, as you save up your cash, instead of locking away in 401ks and locking in prison or locking in home equity, trying to pay off a mortgage that really gives you no benefit by paying it off or paying it down even. In the meantime, you still have a mortgage payment you're going to have to keep paying even as you pay it down. Do max ROI infinite banking to store the cash to then get your money working for you in 2 places at once by doing these passive income investments. And then you can increase your cash flow year after year after year after year. You create this income snowball. That's the key that makes this work. This guy, I mean, I'm just going to breeze through this because I want to get to your questions. By the way, if you have questions, start typing those in the comments now so I can start addressing them. But like I've shown this example for some of you guys before. This guy is actually about 30 years old, wanted to retire by 2029. He used a combination of these two things. He said, hey, I'm going to buy at least 1 or 2 new properties, just rental properties every year. By the way, there's so many other things in real estate besides rental properties, like I mentioned. There's ways that you don't have to own a property, right? You can actually invest money by lending money to investors and things like that. There's different ways to do it. But this is the strategy he picked for himself. So he'd already bought several of them. He was already getting paid some passive income, but he wanted to keep adding to it. In the meantime, he was also paying about $15,000 a year into his infinite banking, his max ROI infinite banking policy. So he's doing that while also saving up money for those properties. Well, you can see here as he's just showing like $300 a month per door, right? Per property that he purchases. It could be more or less depending on the time frame and whatnot. He's not even factoring in that the rents increase every year either. He's just putting a flat number. Notice that his cash flow gets to about $4,400 a year by 2029, or $4,400 a month. Sorry, $4,400 a month by 2029. I told him, I said, well, you want $5,000 a month. You're still short. He's like, yeah, but Chris, look at the top. That life insurance policy that you helped me set up, that infinite banking policy, well, guess what? That can actually kick off $950 a month in just about 8 more years. And I said, really? And so I ran my own numbers using his numbers based on current projections. He was right to the exact dollar. It was about just almost, just over $11,000 a year he could pull out for years and years and years and not run out of money after only funding it for less than 10 years. At $15,000 a year. That's pretty awesome. If you think about it, if you can fund $15,000 a year to then pull off 10 or 11,000 or more a year for decades, that's not bad, Whoa, I just skipped right past that. So here's what needs to change, guys. 1, you got to know your numbers. You got to know where you are. My challenge to you right now, especially if you have extra cash. If you don't have extra cash, keep hanging in here with me. I'm going to give you something else. But if you've got cash sitting around, you're like, I want this to start getting me paying me passive income. Maybe I got at least $150,000, $200,000 I could be doing something with. Then go to www.moneyripples.com, try out the passive income calculator, fill that out completely so you get an accurate number, and it'll tell you how much passive income you could create in your situation. So again, if you've got some significant net worth, at least $150,000, $200,000, I would go try that. Now, you may not have those numbers. Like I said, if you don't even have that much, still, it would apply to the same person that's going to do the passive income calculator. But for you that are just, maybe you're not quite to that $100,000 mark or so, great. That max ROI infinite banking thing is the thing you should be looking at, which also at moneyripples.com, we got a whole rabbit hole on just infinite banking you can check out. But you got to know your numbers, right? You got to know where you are and what's possible. That's why we have that passive income calculator for you. Your money mindset has to change from that accumulation mindset to an acceleration mindset to cash flow. Cash flow is what really creates freedom, because when you have more cash flow, you have more options. And when you have more options, that's when you have more freedom. And guys, it really always comes down to this. You just got to be willing to give you and your family the life that you deserve. right? You deserve more than just surviving, paying bills, trying to get your kids through school, and maybe to college, and maybe get another job that's going to pay them maybe a good income, to then just have them repeat the same cycle of financial bondage that you're going to be experiencing yourself. You got to be doing something different. You got to give your family a chance. You got to create a legacy of abundance and freedom, not of survival and eking out just what kind of living you ever can to just live those days, just on a meager budget. You can't do that. Cash flow, guys, is what creates freedom. That income can start today. It doesn't have to wait years from now. It can start right now. So like I said, there's that calculator you can go find on our Money Ripples website at moneyripples.com. But like I mentioned about my dad, right? Like that guy, he worked so hard, and just 2 months ago, we actually went to go visit him for his 80th birthday. Never thought he would live this long, because this guy, he smoked for 50 years. He ate whatever he wanted. And then of course he got hospitalized because he broke hips and things like that. And they controlled his diet and helped him live longer. Thank goodness. But at the same time, he was stressing. It's like, well, how do I get my money to stretch, right? Because I'm now living longer. My money has to stretch longer too. And he never had that advantage. And he told me recently, he's like, man, I don't even understand your life, like what you're doing and how you're able to do it. Like, he's like, I get it conceptually, but I don't understand because I had to work my tail off for years to finally get to where I am today. Guys, he worked for literally into his 70s to then now try to figure out, how do I live on a budget, right? How do I live on as little as I can so that I don't run out of money? That is not just my dad, guys. There are millions, really, literally tens of millions of people just like him doing the same thing. If you keep doing the same thing that financial advisors and everybody been telling you, you will end up on that same path. But there are some of us, millions of us that have done the same thing. It's not just me. It's not just many of our clients too. There are many people outside of our group that have done the same thing. I just copied someone else. I did the same thing because I saw what evidence worked, and this did. And I'll tell you, I took the screenshot of my GPS when I was driving to literally the bank. And you can see here, like, of course, the main, the way that will save you the most gas, economically, is a 1 minute trip, 0.2 miles. But notice if I go the other direction, it's 24,855 days and 3 hours slower going the other way. I don't know what kind of traffic was on that road, but apparently it was really bad. Must have been, parking lot type of traffic. I don't know. It was so crazy, I had to take a screenshot of it. But I see that kind of like our life, right? Because you could take a quicker way to get there. It's not about having more money. It's about getting your money working harder for you, so you don't have to keep working more years to work hard for that money. You don't have to be trapped. If you have that choice, you have that option, you can do something different. My invite to you is stop it now. You got to have that different perspective, because that perspective will determine a different action, which can create different results in your life and create a very different life that people will envy. A different kind of life that even financial advisors say, well, how'd you do that? I can't do that. You will have a different life, and you'll have more freedom, and you can bless more lives. It's not just about for your own ego, right? It's about, what can I then do with that freedom and that money? Having more time on my hands because I'm work optional. Could I do a passion project? Could I give more to philanthropies? Can I be more involved in these philanthropies? Can I actually help serve more people? Can I be a mentor to the younger generation? Can I actually be an inspiration to other people? Can I, start a podcast called the Money Ripples Podcast and start helping people that way? Yes, to all the above. It's all possible, and I've lived it, and I've seen it, and I see other people doing the same thing. You can as well. Guys, the most dangerous risk of all, as this says, is the risk of spending your life not doing what you want on the bet you can do buy yourself the freedom to do it later. Guys, our days are numbered. We don't know how long we'll be on this planet. All we know is that we can just do what we can and make the best of it. Make the best of the time right now. That's why cash flow can create freedom today, not tomorrow. That's what I have for you guys. So let's go into questions. All right. I know some of you guys already started to type them in. I would love to know if there's other questions coming from you guys as well. Now I'm going back into the chat here. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Okay. Yep, I see that's going in. Oh, Julie asked, she's like, from your passive income calculator, what percentage of clients make at least what the calculator shows in the first year? Good question, Julie. So here's the thing. If someone gets at least $15,000 in the calculator, then we want to talk to you, right? If they don't, then the answer is actually, we don't know, because we only want to take on clients that usually show at least a $15,000 or better result. Why do we do that? Because we want to make sure that whatever you pay us, you make more, much more than what you pay us. That's why. I'm sick and tired. I don't know if you are too, but there's a lot of coaching programs and mastermind groups, everything else, teaching you like, hey, if you just join my little club, I'm going to offer you all these different investments, right? A lot of times it's their own investments. They're just using this club, so you'll invest with them, right? Or they invest with their people that then pay them under the table for being a part of that membership, right? And to each their own, but you can never really trust that they have your best interest at heart, can you? So we don't do that kind of thing, right? We're much more like one-on-one consulting, and so we do work with people. We actually help them strategize. We're not investment advisors. We do help people strategize and then connect them to different investments that we don't get paid on those investments. There are people that like I've invested with for years, other people as well, and just they're part of our kind of referral network, so to speak. Heck, even CPAs and attorneys, we do the same thing. We refer out to them, and mortgage brokers and whatnot. If you need mortgages and whatnot, we've got a whole team and system around us that supports that, all in hopes to get you to do it. So from my passive income calculator, from the percentage of clients, the ones that actually become clients, it's really been, I won't say 100% because I can't say 100%, but let's just say it's near perfect. There was one guy that he actually got $90,000. He had $900,000 that he could invest if he only made 10%. Some of these deals pay more than 10%. If he had invested his $900,000, he would have made $90,000 a year without touching his $900,000, right? Without pulling that money out too, just all interest. But he didn't do anything, and so eventually we just he's just like, hey, I'm not going to do anything. Maybe I'm out. So he was out. We basically fired him as a client, and which was good because a couple years later he sent his friend over, and his friend came over and he hired us, and he got results much faster than this guy did because the guy didn't do anything. So the truth is, Julie, is that really, if the calculator is pretty dang accurate, unless you fill out incorrectly, right? So, but for those that do it, it's usually pretty darn close. A lot of times we'll take out the home equity calculation. It doesn't really add much to the calculator anyways, but sometimes we have these people have like a $3 million house that's paid off that could be generating income. But right now we're like, you know what? You don't have to pay. You don't have to do anything with your house. We'll lower that number. And we'll usually tell people when you do a consultation, if you have at least about 15,000 or above, maybe you're 14,000, we still might talk to you. But if it's right around 15,000 above, we'll kind of verify those numbers just to make sure we could actually get those kind of results. If not, we'll just tell you, hey, you're not a fit. You don't qualify. We'd love to help you, but come back a little bit later. Keep building some savings. So I appreciate that, Julie. That's a great question. We got another question here. It says, does the interest on the money I withdraw from my life insurance policy also compound over time? So two different things. If you withdraw, here, I'll even show that here. Wait, did it work? I can't tell. There we go. Yeah. So here's the thing. If you withdraw money from your life insurance, just like any savings account, if you withdraw money, no, you do not compound interest because you withdrew it. But if you borrow from the insurance company, then yes, all of your money is in there. So let's just say you had $100,000 sitting in there. You want to access 50,000 of it. So you go to the insurance company, borrow 50,000. You borrowed 50,000 from them. Your 100,000 is still earning those tax-free compounding interest returns. 50,000, yes, you're paying interest on as well. And sometimes the interest can even be a little bit higher than what they're paying you. But like I said, if you're using it for cash flowing investments, whether it be in business, real estate, or something that pays you good cash flow, heck, you can use it to pay off loans that frees up cash flow there to then use to pay it back. Say if you're paying off high interest credit cards, you could do that too. And then pay it back in. You'll pay down that line of credit, so less and less gets charged in interest. Even though it's a higher rate, you get charged less in total interest versus the interest they're paying you. You still net profit. You still get a net gain on that money. So great question. Other questions from you guys really quick. All right. Well, guys, I appreciate your time today. This is awesome. Great questions. I appreciate it. Hopefully you got something out of this. I'd love you guys put in the chat here, like, here's one takeaway I got. Like, here's the one thing I got, and maybe I'll take action on. Put that in the comments. Even if you're watching the recording, put that in the comments. So I'd love to see what you're doing, what you're getting from this, what you're actually going to take action on, because that action is what really creates the change in your life. And that's the whole ripple effect I'm trying to create for you guys, right? I want you guys to really see a change in your life because it's done it for me. Done it for others, and that's the ripple effect I'm here to create. I want more freedom for you and like many others. And I know I can't just do that sitting on the beach, just enjoying my family, right? That's the most selfish thing I could do. The best thing I could do is to try to teach you guys how to do what I've done twice now, is improve that cash flow and improve it month after month, year after year, so that you don't even have to give a crap about inflation. You can have freedom right now and later in the future too. So guys, if you have any questions, reach out to us at moneyripples.com. Invite you also to subscribe to our Money Ripples podcast on YouTube or on wherever you consume podcasts. Make it a great day, guys. Thanks.